I came across an interesting question asking how can American cryptocurrency investors benefit from getting a Portugal golden visa? Today I'm going to explain why the answer isn't as simple as you might think. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, the author of the book Nomad Capitalist and the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. Now, here's the interesting question I came across. It says, how can cryptocurrency American investors benefit by applying for RCBI in Portugal, Residence and Citizenship by Investment? Portugal has had one of the longest standing golden visa programs, which classifies as a residence by investment program. The gold part means you make an investment into a fund, into real estate, into any number of different things. They give you a residence permit, and that can lead towards citizenship. It is not, contrary to what some would say, a citizenship by investment program, which in my mind is where you make an investment or make a donation and pretty quickly get citizenship without any other conditions, such as having to learn a language or anything like that. So Portugal's program is residence. It is not a guaranteed citizenship, but it makes the process of citizenship more easy. And so the question asks that I've heard American investors who have made their money from crypto investments save a lot of money when they get a second passport in Portugal, since they are exempt from capital gains taxes on crypto holdings. What would I need to do if I'm interested? And so where this question was posted, you see numerous Portuguese attorneys replying, and what they mostly talk about is the process in Portugal, how Portugal's program works. And they clear up some misconceptions, but I think they don't get to the heart of the matter. This is why what we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist with the holistic plan, I believe, is so important, because you can follow all the rules in Portugal, but it's not going to affect your U.S. tax situation. The U.S. is ostensibly the only country that on a full worldwide basis taxes all of your income no matter where you live. So even if you move to Portugal, that's not going to end your taxation issues. And so let's go through this question step by step. American investors made their money by crypto, save money when they get a second passport in Portugal. Well, already we just explained that you can get a second passport in Portugal, but it's not going to be a 6-month process. It is not what you see in the Caribbean with the 5 different Caribbean citizenship by investment programs, where you take a couple months to do your paperwork, you take a couple months to get an approval, and you've got a passport in your hands in less than a year. It simply doesn't work that way in Portugal, and the EU, I think, would very much frown on that. They already assisted in shutting down Cyprus in their program. They're rattling at the door of Bulgaria, and they certainly don't like what's happening in Malta, where it takes about 18 months. So you're not getting EU citizenship anywhere with what I would call a citizenship by investment program. Malta would be the closest thing to that, and they call it something a little bit different. So second passport in Portugal, if you're in crypto, waiting the amount of time, the time that it takes to get the golden visa, the 5 years that you need to wait, and then the time that you need to apply, you're going to be waiting a long time, and I'm guessing that your crypto, if you're in it for the long haul, is going to go up substantially. At least that's what you think. And so the second passport in Portugal isn't the issue, and the second passport wouldn't make the difference anyway, because if you are a dual citizen of the U.S. and any other country, including Portugal, the U.S. is going to say, great, to us, you're still a U.S. citizen. We're not going to argue with you that you're a dual citizen. We're not going to harass you. We're not going to cancel your U.S. citizenship. We're not going to say you can't travel to other countries on that Portuguese citizenship. In fact, within the EU, you should travel on your EU citizenship. But they're also going to say, hey, it doesn't matter how many citizenships you have, you are to us still a U.S. citizen, which makes you a U.S. taxpayer, which means that if you are investing in cryptocurrency and you have things like capital gains or interest income or other incomes, then you're just going to pay tax on that to the U.S. Your main options would be going to Puerto Rico and taking advantage of the Act 60 tax program, or expatriating from the U.S. There are some other ways that you could do that in theory, but they're not going to apply to a lot of people. And so the question continues. If I get a second passport in Portugal, since they are exempt from capital gains taxes on crypto holdings, again, there's a misunderstanding here where the idea is, hey, if I go to Portugal, and since Portugal doesn't have capital gains taxes on crypto holdings, because there is this kind of open, undefined area around crypto in Portugal, then as an American, I'll be fine. Now, if you're a Canadian, if you're an Australian, if you're any other nationality, for the most part, that doesn't have this worldwide taxation, can you follow a strict process, in many cases, to exit the tax system in your country while keeping your passport, keeping your citizenship, simply declaring yourself to no longer be a taxpayer, meeting the conditions on the departure side, which are increasingly rigorous, and then relocating to Portugal and establishing yourself there? You're leaving one country, you're entering another. It's 2 parts of my tax-friendly quadrant. You as an individual need to leave where you are in the high tax environment, and then you need to go to a low tax environment. If you have a company, which generally wouldn't affect crypto investors, but the company needs to leave the high tax environment and migrate to the zero or low tax environment from there. So that's fine, but this person is fundamentally understanding that Americans have a different burden than a Canadian, for example, and you simply can't leave and take advantage of Portugal's laws. Now, what I will tell Americans is that sometimes, being in a zero tax environment is a benefit because then it's pretty clean. You just owe the U.S. The U.S. just owe the IRS the rest, right? There's nothing complicated to calculate. You're not figuring out credits. You're not figuring out all kinds of different stuff. You just say, hey, here's my tax bill. I didn't pay anything else somewhere else. And so for many people, that makes a lot of sense to just say, I'm going to start a company overseas. If I'm in business, I'm going to pay 0% in any of the 0% jurisdictions. And that's going to make it easier on my US side because I'm not doing a bunch of back and forth. The same could apply for crypto. So if you want to go to live in Portugal, that's fine. You're not going to be adding to the burden. You're not going to be adding to the complexity that much. But you are still going to have that US tax there. And so the question continues, what would I need to do if I'm interested in the program for this sole reason? So it simply doesn't work for that reason. Now, how it could work is you're an American, you get a second passport from a legitimate citizenship by investment program in the Caribbean, in the South Pacific, in Malta, for example, and then you obtain a residence permit. Well, there are other ways you can get citizenship rather quickly. I'd say those are the fastest right now. There are other citizenship by investment programs. There are fast-track naturalization programs. If you have someone in the family tree, you could theoretically get citizenship that way through citizenship by descent. If you have a spouse, there's many ways to get citizenship that could take anywhere from 6 months on to who knows how long. You could obtain citizenship through any quick method. You could expatriate from the United States, i.e. give up your citizenship, and then you could go and simply declare residence in Portugal. If you're an EU citizen because you did the Malta program, or your grandmother was Irish and you claimed Irish citizenship, whatever, you simply go to Portugal as an EU citizen, you register, you claim the tax benefits through the proper tax channels. If you're not an EU or EEA citizen, then you would simply need to go and take advantage of either the Golden Visa or any one of Portugal's other investment options. And then the question comes in as to, when does Portugal become your tax home so that you can take advantage of that, and making sure that you don't have a tax home anywhere else that would conflict with the benefits that you're getting in Portugal. So if you're willing to give up US citizenship and you have some other passport, or you can get another passport to do that, then that puts you in the same category as all the other people we talked about who can simply exit their home country and go and move into a new country. And if you had a passport in a Caribbean country, then the process of checking out of the country that you're a citizen in wouldn't be difficult because you've never lived in St. Lucia. So it's not going to be really rigorous to leave their tax system because you were never in it, as opposed to someone who's Canadian or from New Zealand or whatever else, where they need to close down their ties. You're closing down your ties by leaving the U.S. and giving up your citizenship. And so, a couple things I want to clarify. The first issue, or the first real issue here, is how do you define tax residence versus citizenship? So this person is confusing the idea that if I have citizenship, I am by default a tax resident. And so, as I just explained, you can go out and get a citizenship from, let's say, a Caribbean country. If you never set foot in that country, which most citizenship by investment programs don't require you to ever even go there, you're not going to be a taxpayer. Now, some of the Caribbean programs actually don't have a personal income tax, which makes things easier, but some of them do. And so the fact that you're a citizen of that country doesn't mean that you will be taxed in that country. It wouldn't be very good for their business, but it's just not how it works. The same way that you could become Irish citizen through that grandmother. If you don't go and live in Ireland, generally speaking, you're not going to be taxed on your foreign income because these countries don't have the U.S. form of citizenship-based taxation. So people, I think, sometimes get it confused where they think, I don't want to get a second passport because I'm going to have to pay taxes there. Meanwhile, on the other hand, they think, well, hey, I'm an American, I can do whatever I want and simply go overseas and not pay tax. The issue is, where is your tax home? If you are an American, U.S. citizen, U.S. green card holder, you've spent too much time in the U.S., you've made an election to be taxed as an American, then your tax home is in the U.S. and you're going to be taxed on everything that goes on in your life, no matter what. So understand the difference between tax residence, which is where you pay taxes. If you were to give up your citizenship, you could go to Portugal and you could declare tax residence by setting up your home, spending some time there, and that would be your tax home. And you would try not to get another tax home that would ruin what you're doing in Portugal. Residence is what you get from the Golden Visa or other immigration programs where you have the ability to live in the country. It's an immigration benefit. So you hear the word residence, sometimes it's tax residence, that's finance, that's your money. Sometimes it's immigration, like a temporary residence permit that you get with one of these immigration programs. And then, of course, there's citizenship, which is what theoretically comes after residence. If you fulfill the criteria, you wait the appropriate amount of time, and you can become naturalized in the country. Okay? And so, again, people get confused. Oh, I hear they sell citizenship by investment. No, they give you a path to citizenship that makes it easier through the golden visa with less time on the ground, so you can keep your current lifestyle. But putting together a golden visa with a tax residence may not be that easy, right? The golden visa allows you to come into the country, but you may not, just by coming and spending your 7 days a year, that may not be enough. You may not have all the criteria by default to call that your tax home. So simply being a resident of a place, I have numerous residence cards and I have numerous citizenships. I don't have to pay tax to them in a bad way, nor do I get the benefits of necessarily, if those countries have no taxes or have a great friendly tax regime, I don't get the benefits of that simply because I'm a resident, simply because I'm a citizen, if I don't meet the criteria, which could be physical presence, which could be other things in that country. The next issue is really understanding the difference between a Plan A and Plan B second citizenship. And so in this case, the gentleman's saying, hey, I want to go and get my Plan B passport in Portugal. Now I'm going to be a dual citizen, the U.S. and Portugal. If something crazy happens in the U.S., which it sounds like the issue to him is paying tax. That's already been an issue for over 100 years. He wants to use as a Plan B, which is just keeping the passport in my back pocket, having the best of both worlds. But again, that doesn't work for the tax side. So what we say about Plan A is I'm going to get a residence, or I'm going to get a citizenship, or I'm going to get one of each in this case, because you're not going to get Portuguese citizenship quickly enough to get the crypto tax breaks. You need to bump it up to a Plan A. And the other mistake I see people making is they think that you have to put everything in one basket. They think, hey, I'm going to move to Portugal, therefore I need tax residence, and citizenship. Well, that may not necessarily be the case. Again, you can start to compartmentalize that. You could have your citizenship somewhere else. You could have your, some of your time spent in Portugal, but maybe your tax residence is somewhere else. You want to look at ways that you can compartmentalize this. Now, you don't want to necessarily do everything separately, but if you can say, I'm going to get citizenship quickly in some other country, that's not Portugal. That's going to facilitate me to then make that second passport, not a Plan B as he's suggesting, but a Plan A where I'm going to use that to then leave the U.S. tax system for once and for all. And then I'm going to establish residence, whether I want to live there, whether I want to be my tax home, whether I want to live there part-time, full-time. That may not necessarily be where you end up paying taxes. Maybe you want to spend half of your time living in some other tax-free jurisdiction. Maybe you want the ability to get Portuguese citizenship in the future, but you'd rather spend a lot of your time living in St. Kitts and Nevis, which has a zero tax policy. And so the way that these things are suggested just doesn't entirely make sense. Okay, tax residence, and citizenship are separate. Americans have an obligation no matter where they live. That's what this misses. And so if you're in crypto, you're at a disadvantage, especially if you're a passive investor. If you have a business, maybe some things you can do with that. But if you're a passive investor in crypto, you don't have as many options. And so the idea of simply getting a second passport, I think everyone in crypto should have a second passport or be working towards one. If you don't have a lot of money, there may be some paper residences that you can do, or some kind of cheaper, lower hassle options that you can do. If you have, in the 7, 8, 9 figures, I would definitely recommend citizenship by investment. Everyone in crypto should have a second passport as a Plan B, but the way it's being suggested here is not going to help you on the tax front. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.